call the meeting to order for the Thursday, January 18, 2018 Board of Education regular meeting for Lincoln Way Community High School District 210. Please stand as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mrs. Black. Here. Ms. Janice Doyle. Here. Mr. Luchetti.
Here.
Mr. Lulo.
Here.
Mr. Janik.
Here.
Mr. Costick.
Here.
Mr. Kirby.
Here. Thank you. We had no one signed up for public comment. If not, we will move right to our student council presidents. Since Busy, you were here first. You've been sitting the longest, you can go first.
Okay, well, we'd like to welcome everyone back, and we hope everybody had a good holiday vacation. So before break, Student Council at West decided our twerp theme would be Candyland, based off of the children's board game. So twerp will be held on February 17th, and until then, that's Student Council's main priority is decorating and planning. As for the rest of West, we had our Illinois State Scholar Breakfast yesterday morning with over 70 students being honored as part of the Scholar Program. We also this morning had our World Language Honor Society inductions for Chinese, French, Spanish, and German with, I believe, over 100 students being honored into that. This Friday will be our elective fair for course selection for freshmen, sophomores, and juniors for next year. Us seniors are sitting out for the first time. And for Black Box Winter Play, February 1st, we're having 6 student senior directors who are all busy planning and preparing for that production. As for athletics, our wrestling has finally moved on to the postseason, and we'll be going to Stag this weekend for a rumble to get it started. We also have a cheer conference this Saturday at Andrew after JV placed first at their SWSC tournament last week. Boys bowling will be advancing to sectionals this Saturday as well. And girls basketball recently won against Central Tuesday night, and their season is phenomenally a 20-3. And our dance team placed second at conference at Bolingbrook and will be advancing to the Geneva sectional this Saturday and hoping to go to state at the end of the month.
Thank you. Good report. All right, Michelle, you can go next. The elbow at you over there.
Okay, so the last time we met, Lincoln Way Central was gearing up for finals week, and to end the semester on a cheerful note, we decorated the AP room for the holidays, played holiday music during passing periods, and we passed out hot chocolate to all students on the very first morning of finals week. And as a student council, we also sponsored a family in need for the holidays, and it is safe to say that we killed finals week and ended 2017 with a bang. And we all know that winter break was relaxing, but I think most of us were ready to come back. The beginning of the new semester brings many new events for our student council, and in our coming meetings, we will hit the ground running with twerp and knight in shining armor. This year, using an electronic poll, we asked our entire student body to vote on a theme, and as the polls closed yesterday, it has been determined that this year's theme is going to be masquerade. We look forward to putting our heads together to plan and carry out yet another successful twerp week here at Lincoln Way Central. And while twerp plans are underway, it is important that we also kick off some early planning for a knight in shining armor. And for those of you who are unaware of what it is more or less a pageant for our senior boys. And this pageant consists of a lip sync battle, a talent portion, and a response to some formal questions. And this event is held together with our prom fashion show, and this year it will be on Thursday, March 22nd. And last year I attended this event, and I don't think I've ever laughed harder than I did that night. And this night does take a lot of planning and logistics on student council's end, but it never seems to be less than perfect. And for the most part, our semester is off to a busy start, but we're excited for all of the events to come, especially for us seniors who will be enjoying our final semester here at Lincoln Way Central.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything to say about West Central?
No, I'm neutral.
All right. Amanda.
All right, so the annual Mr. and Miss Griffin talent show preparation is in full swing. The competition is going to be on Saturday, February 27th in the auditorium. And then the practices for the Mr. and Miss Griffin portion began last week. And then tryouts for the talent show were yesterday and today. So we anticipate a full sellout of the 1,250 seats in the East Auditorium as proceeds go to funding the scholarships for the participants. Tort preparations have begun for student council. At the last meeting, we voted on a space theme. So we're going to decide the name and then the spirit days at this upcoming meeting. It's going to be on February 10th, and the entertainment is going to be by B96 Boom Entertainment. Over break, Lincoln Way senior and Northwestern recruit Devin O'Rourke became the first ever East football player to compete in the prestigious Under Armour All-America Bowl at the Rose Bowl in Orlando, Florida. He represented East well as he faced off against some of the top football players in the country, and he did well, so congratulations to him. In addition, East senior Kendall Pitlick performed with the marching band at the U.S. Army All-American Bowl in San Antonio, Texas, which deemed her one of the top 125 marching band members in the United States. She performed during halftime of the game, and we're very proud of her and happy that she was able to represent Lincoln Way Marching Band so well. Yesterday, Illinois State Senator Michael Hastings visited East to honor each member of the 2017 Class 8A State Championship football team. Each player and coach received a certificate from the Illinois State Senate for their achievements. And then over break, our girls basketball team performed extremely well in the annual Medieval Classic tournament. We were able to secure a win in the championship game as well, so congratulations to them. And then finally, our science department is going to be hosting Science Day on February 7th for all the incoming future Griffins from all the feeder schools, so I think it's K through 5th grade. So these kids are going to be participating in science-related activities, and they're going to be guided around by NHS members from East. So we hope that a bunch of future East students can be in attendance. Coming back from winter break, East is very excited for a successful second semester. We hope to continue the academic, athletic, and overall community success of the past semester. Thank you.
Next on the agenda, curriculum and instruction update.
Tonight I wanted to give you a little preview of the chaos that happens over the next month as we get all of our incoming freshmen set and schedules decided. And I gave you 2 sheets. They're also in the board docs. But the page that says recommendation scores at the top, what I'd really like to do is walk through the thinking and any of the changes on why we recommend kids for certain courses. Now, it's been a board policy for forever here that parents can waive students up. So we give recommendations. We don't give hard cut scores because the parents, the junior high teachers know sometimes better than a one-day test, but that gives us our starting point. So I'll go in order on the sheet, but social science is shifting this year, which I think is a great move for us. We're moving from Western Civ to a world history and geography. The driving force there is that there's an AP geography course that many schools have. Pre-Moniz is a school that has it, one of the 230 schools. And that's their freshman entry-level AP. Right now it's U.S. history, and the kids have to take that as a sophomore. So gives any freshman that wants to go that direction a chance to get their toe in the water of AP. I think it's a great move. And also at 2018, it's probably time to move from Western Civ to more of a world history. So I think it's great for us. I'm really excited to see where that's going to go. As far as biology goes, last year we put in the environmental biology. If you've been to the foundation lunch or you've seen some of the moose skulls and things that are out there, that course was designed for the kids that need that hands-on, and that's really what it's become. Every one of the 3 teachers involved has a set of the laptops, so they do a lot online. They read maybe as much as the regular ed kids, but they read different. They read things that are going to be, we're going to experiment this. We're going to look at this lab report. So I love the way that course is going. And so environmental biology is in year 1. A few tweaks for next year, but it looks great, and that's hands-on. The honors bio and biology remain as they are. And you'll see that number on all of our recommendations. About 20% of our kids every year, that's what is recommended for honors. Now, get some waive-ins, we'll end up with 22 to 25%, but that's great. That's a really nice number. Math, we're in the 3rd year of the new math program. I feel great where honors algebra is at right now. I did want to take an extra minute to talk specifically to the board about math and math placements. The statement on the board up there is really the heart of it. With rare exceptions, we prefer that all of our freshmen start with our Algebra 1. Even if they've had algebra in junior high, our Algebra 1 is SAT based. A lot of the tests have SAT questions embedded. When we have an exceptional math student and they want to go ahead, we don't hold them back. They can do that. But that should be the exception more than the rule. And that wasn't like that 5-6 years ago. A fine math student, we would push them into geometry. Well, it really came from a pretty serious study that we put out. We called colleges. We said, is it important that every kid gets to an AP Calc? And they said, if students come to us with a great base in algebra and geometry and a taste of calc, that's perfect. So we redesigned things to work that way. We looked at the SAT and the ACT. They're about 70% algebra. There is no calculus on an ACT or an SAT. So we've always said, what's the rush? Let's make sure that they've got 3 years of mastery, and then we think our math scores are going to take a jump this year. I think they're going to take a huge jump next year as the program's fully in. So this is just a quick snapshot. Most of our freshmen will enter at Algebra 1. They'll go to geometry. They'll go to Algebra 2, and then they go to calculus. And they couldn't do that in the past. If they entered in geometry, they could get to calc. We've redone it. Love what that's happening. But here's the heart of it. The ACT and SAT live right there in those 3 years. If a student jumps into geometry right away, the last time they've seen algebra is a year before they take their ACT, and it's an algebra-based test. So we're going to continue to lead kids that direction, but we don't turn anybody down. If we've got a student who jumped in as a freshman into Algebra 2 honors, and he's acing everything, that's a 1 in 1,000 kids, but he's fantastic. So here's our dilemma with math. If they start in geometry, they move to Algebra 2, calculus or AP Calculus as a junior, we have AP classes that they can take, but it's a lot better for a student to take calc right before they go to college, not to have that year gap. And so we don't see a huge advantage unless a student is extremely gifted in math. But we'll see. We'll see how the parents continue to support that. Right now it's going great. English is about the same, top 20%. Every incoming freshman receives the same composition and writing skills, which is why our writing's in that 80 to 85%. Fantastic. And honors just does a little more in-depth literature, read a little more challenging things, but the skills are the same. And then the last piece is the reading. Reading's the only score that we have a legitimate cut score. We would have 100 sections of reading in the summer, and we can't staff it. We feel that a score of a 29 is equivalent to a really nice ACT walking in the door, or an SAT. Those kids really can do that accelerated pace of the reading in the summer, but if they're not at a 29 or a 1050 composite, that's a hard cut. It allows us to keep it at 6 to 8 sections in the summer, which is great for us. We can staff that with our people, and I think we lose the fidelity of the program if we're just grabbing kids off the street, 22-year-olds, and saying, "What would you like to teach reading?" So we've held that one pretty solid. So the other sheet that you have, just very briefly, is exactly what the parents receive. So all those scores are in Excel sheets now. They are mail merged into this sheet, and that's what the parents get. When we have the open house, the parents and the kids come with that sheet, and they'll go to the tables, and I wouldn't want to say argue, but they'll talk with the tables and say, my student would like to be in honors. And if they've got a close score, we usually say go for it. If it's not close, we just want them to make an educated decision. We don't want a kid in there and floundering if he's not really ready to go. So I like our system. I think we're going to continue to have some challenges with the math, because the junior highs are doing a better and better job of the math, and that may push us in the next year or two. But for right now, this works really well for us. So, do you have any questions?
Any questions?
I have one question. Sure. These scores change on a yearly basis?
Since we've been using the PSAT 8-9, they haven't, so the last few years. But we do monitor that 20%, and if the kids get a little better, we may kick it up. But we know that those scores are equivalent to what we used to test on the Explorer to get into honors. So I think they'll stay the same for a while. That's good. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, thank you, Tim. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of approval of the minutes from December 14th, 2017 meeting, approval of the closed session minutes from the December 14th, 2017 meeting, approval of the payrolls of December 20th and January 5th, and out-of-state travel. Does anyone wish to have any of these items pulled and discussed separately? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented. The motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second.
Take a vote.
Yes, take the vote. on
Vote's open. The vote is unanimous, the motion is passed.
Thank you, Linda. All right, next we move on to our action items. First action item is the presentation of invoices for December 2017. Is there a motion to accept the presentation of invoices as presented?
Motion to approve the invoices in the amount of $1,759,853.69 dated January 18th, 2018.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
I think it should be 2017 for the motion.
No.
No? We're approving December bills?
They're dated January 18th.
I think you said December 2018. Sorry.
Dated.
Dated.
All right.
Good questions.
Just want to make sure we're not
Very good. Thank
paying
you.
the wrong.
Scott, second.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on the invoices?
The date's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, hearing none, we'll call for a vote, Linda, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous, the motion is passed.
Thank you. Next action item is the treasurer's report, December 2017. I'd entertain a motion to accept the treasurer's report as presented in your board packet.
So moved.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion. Mr. Brad.
Yes, just want to highlight a few things in the packet. As you see there, we had revenues of $2.3 million, expenditures of $18.2, but that's because we're making our semi-annual, well, our annual principal payment on our debt service and our semi-annual interest expense. We ended the month with just over $10 million in cash, which includes $4.7 million of draws on our tax anticipation warrants, leaving us an ending fund balance of $5.3 million. On the revenue, highlight that we have finished the collection of the 2016 tax levy. The tax levy was $63,285 short of the budget. That was mainly due to court-ordered tax refunds, property tax appeal board decisions, and then some delinquent taxes. So that's the end of my report. Answer any questions.
Any questions for Brad? Brad, in your cash flow report, just a kind of off-the-rail question, with changes in the tax laws, I know many people prepaid or kind of paid before the end of the year the real estate taxes, which part of that would be our real estate taxes that our fine county treasurer is probably holding on to. Have you made any outreach to them to find out if there will be any consideration of an early disbursement?
Right, so I did reach out to the Will County clerk, spoke with Irene Beasley there. Yes, there has been some people take advantage, or I actually should say probably just be more conservative with the change in the IRS law coming into effect. They wanted to pay those 2017 taxes early. And I asked her, I said, well, were they paying both halves or just the first installment? She said it's a mixed. Some did both, some did just the first installment. So the way that will work for us, and yes, they are planning on a May 24th, 2018 early disbursement. I confirmed that with her. The way that'll work for us is if somebody paid in early and just paid the first installment, that will just speed up the amount we're going to collect in this fiscal year, but shouldn't have any impact on the split between fiscal years.
Right.
What will have the impact if somebody took advantage and paid both installments, then we could see a little more percentage in this fiscal year than normal.
Oh, so they will, on that.
They'll go ahead and distribute anything that was paid in. So we should expect our May 24th payment to be higher than usual, and it'll just be interesting. Time will tell how the split between years will or will not be affected.
Did they give any indication? I know some of the counties were giving out how much they collected in advance. Did Will County?
She did not have that kind of data. I mean, that she voluntarily, she said they did have a number of people that paid, and she says some were just the first installment, some were both installments. So.
I think it would be helpful if we, for the whole board, on the report summary on the cash flows, can we talk about how we get to the total revenue, total expenditures, and how, like, from month to month, the month-to-month fluctuations in the accounts payable that are getting paid? Can we just give kind of the process that you're going through to come up with those?
Right, so the way this process is basically for revenue, we start with the budget, and then, as you know, last report we had those what we considered estimated revenue for fiscal year. So we already know we have a few known changes on our revenue side. So in the cash flow, we've adjusted for that. That's mainly the new evidence-based funding formula. We're getting $317,000 every twice monthly. So on the revenue side, if you go to the bottom of the summary of the cash flow, you'll notice that doesn't match the budget. And that's because we know we're going to have a little additional revenue. So we've calculated that in there. On the expenditure side, you'll notice that is pretty much on, other than for rounding. So what we've done is we start out with the budgeted expenditures, and in the cash flow we assume we will spend 100% of the budget, not more, not less. Then we take a look at how we've flowed in years past, and that's where we build in the formulas. Then every month we report in the actual, and then whatever the remaining percentage, we then adjust those where we think the difference, if it's up or down, where well, it's our best estimate on where we think the dollars are going to fall. It's a projection. We do the best we can with it.
So we moved the land sale back, this report, and now we're going to be talking again about an extension. I just think, and I know there's still confidence that it will possibly occur this fiscal year, but I just think when we're going through this cash flow, we might next time just want to take a look at it without that in it, and also kind of what are the next options. Obviously, so we could talk about, do we still have a reserve in insurance, et cetera, so that when we're looking at this, because we're anticipating about 23 million, we have 27 million approved. We don't have that $4.5 million in land sales. I just want to make sure that we're discussing a few months in advance, what we're going to do.
Okay. That may, I know I'm pushing this whole tax collection thing, but the timing of that may be coincidental, because that would be coming in May when the land sale was supposed to happen, because in both cases we're just trying to minimize the amount of credit extension to cover the cash flow shortage. So if we could find a way to work with our folks down in Joliet there to give us the best guesstimate of what that number may be. When you start putting two commas into a draw, it adds up pretty quick.
Will do. The other thing I would want to note on the cash flow, I believe I mentioned it in my memo. With the land sales being postponed, we will need to be doing a couple of loans from the ed fund to O&M. So we'll have that on the agenda coming up as we get closer, but we'll need to do that probably twice.
And that's to keep all the tax anticipation warrants in they're all approved in the ed fund.
Right, exactly.
The cash flow report helpful. If
Yeah.
you follow it, it's pretty good.
I would just also note, and I think Joe brought this up, but the under the expenditures now we have in there, the district is current with all bills and there's no outstanding bills over 45 days. So I think that's just another checkpoint for the board to keep an eye on.
We asked Fred to add that just so that it's a monitor, so that if for some reason it's omitted, that would be a great question to ask. Or if something does happen to get carried out for whatever reason, it gives us a reason to get an explanation. So the payables aging will be part of it. I'll ask just one more quick question. We've talked about this in the past, the state funding. How can you break that down and just so that I can understand what do we have that is still from the previous fiscal year?
Okay, so on state funding for fiscal year 17, as of the 26th of December, so 6 months after the close of the fiscal year, the state finally made the last payments for the fiscal year 17. So we have 100% finally paid off in fiscal year 17. Now, where we're at fiscal year 18 is, the new evidence-based funding formula, which replaced the old general state aid, special ed extraordinary, special ed personnel, special ed summer school, and bilingual education funding that all got lumped into this new evidence-based funding, and we're getting all of those payments twice a month on a regular basis. Now, what that left was the old mandatory categorical payments, driver's ed, and then of course federal grants which flow through the state. To date, the state has vouchered $720,000. We received like $26,000 in some driver's ed and some other little federal thing, but otherwise we're really not receiving any other funding. So basically what happened is on one side's a blessing, we're getting this evidence-based funding, very regular, counting on it, but of course that's really putting a strain on their budget, so they're paying really nothing else. So we typically at this point we would have expected to see at least one mandatory categorical payment, but we haven't seen anything so far.
Do we know when about?
Any communication?
No, we haven't heard anything. If I had to look in my crystal ball, I'd say expect no payments on the mandatory categoricals. I don't think we'll get anything for this fiscal year. I think the evidence-based funding is tapping them out, and I think that they're making those, and I just don't think they're going to make any others.
The state board just asked for more money from the legislature to, like 7.5 billion more.
I knew at least that was higher.
Yeah, okay. I didn't hear an answer. Okay.
All right, well that helps. It's good to at least know that we're through the one fiscal year now. We're
Right.
dancing with what's left over. All right, any other questions for Brad? If not, we have a motion and a second. We'll open it up for a vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous, the motion passes.
Thank you, and thank you for your questions. Next action item is student activities report for December 2017. I'll entertain a motion to accept the student activities report as presented in your board packet.
So moved.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second.
Brief report this month, as you can see, just 2 accounts, negative balance, Football Central at $1,251 in the class of 2019 East. Central will be taken care of by the end of the month. The class of 2019 is still because the prom deposits have been made, and those will be recouped once ticket sales begin.
Any other questions or discussion regarding the student activity report? Now we'll call for a vote.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous, the motion passes.
Thank you. Next on the action items are personnel reports. Rob.
Under employment, Caitlin Kerwick has accepted a teaching position in the district transition program effective January 8, 2018. Laura Erlenbaugh has accepted the position of district director of special services for Lincoln Community High School District 210 effective July 1, 2018. Mike Hollinger has accepted the position of building and ground supervisor at Lincoln Way Central High School effective January 8, 2018. Kimberly Kremel has accepted a position of paraprofessional at Lincoln Way Central High School effective January 9, 2018. And Miriam Samara has accepted a position as benefits specialist for Lincoln Way Community High School District 210 effective January 16, 2018. I ask the board to approve these employment report as presented.
Entertain a motion to accept the employment report as presented.
So moved.
There's a motion.
Second.
Second. Any additional discussion?
Rob, have we always had the benefits specialist, have we always had that position, or is that a new position?
As long as I can remember, we've had that position.
Okay, all right.
Mrs. Stone was that prior to her current position. But yes, we've had that position for quite a long time.
Just a general question. Where we find ourselves in the economic cycle with employment being where it's at, how are you finding your candidate pool for jobs in general?
We are pretty lucky in the community in which we live. When we post, people want to work here.
It's still
So we
perceived
get
as an employer of choice.
Yeah, we get a great candidate pool, and we've been very fortunate, I think, and we've got some really good hires over the last few years, and kind of taken advantage of, you know, the economy, and we've got some great people working for us, and we're desirable.
Good. Okay. That's good to hear. Thank you. All right. We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll call for a
The
vote.
vote is open. The vote is unanimous, the motion passes.
Thank you. Rob, resignation.
Under resignation, Stephen Borchard, yearbook sponsor, Lincoln Way West High School, will resign from this extracurricular activity at the conclusion of the 2017-2018 school year. Samantha Chevalier, paraprofessional at Lincoln Way Central High School, has resigned from her position effective December 22nd, 2017. Dennis Harper, bus driver, Transportation Department, will resign his position effective January 21st, 2018. And Barbara Poloquin, bus driver, Transportation Department, has resigned from her position effective January 9th, 2018. I ask the board to approve the resignations as presented.
Entertain a motion to accept the report regarding resignations as presented.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous, the motion passes.
Under retirements, Linda Vavona, teacher, physical education department, Lincoln Way East High School, has requested to retire under board option A at the conclusion of the 2021-2022 school year. Chester Schmerlo, teacher, science department, Lincoln Way West High School, has requested to retire under board option A at the conclusion of the 2021-2022 school year. I ask the board to approve these retirements as presented.
Entertain a motion to approve the personnel report retirements as presented. The motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion regarding the retirement report? Hearing none, call for a vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous, the motion passes.
Thank you, Brock. Our next action item, third amendment to the land sale agreement.
Yes, asking the board to ratify and approve the third amendment to the land sale agreement as presented. What we do have for review from the board this evening. I was going through the process as we talked at the last meeting. It would likely move even further. So now we are out to March 6th of 2018. As you'll see, item number 2, we've X'd out. They asked that we reduce the purchase price. We're not able to do that without beginning the entire process. So that's not an option in the state of Illinois with municipalities. So with that being said, we have to determine a way to make up about $900,000. Working with the Village of Tinley Park, their first strategy is to have their engineers work with the engineers that are working for Woodman's to determine some of the retention area. If we can rework some of that retention area, they believe they can reduce the cost of the project significantly. Now, this is a result of the original specs for the project having 4 to 5 outlots, and now there's only 1 due to the floodplain. So that reduces their potential revenue. So, first step is for the engineers to work together. The second step then is for the Village of Tinley to work with the other municipalities to determine if there are any other incentives or rebates that could be put together as a package to try and come up with the difference in the purchase price. So we'll know more when we come back to the table in February. By then, the engineers will have worked together. The Village of Tinley will have been able to put together some different incentive options for other municipalities to consider. This is advantageous for everyone if a grocer goes in there. It's not a warehouse. There's greater tax implications both on the sales tax and the property tax side of things. So I would ask the board to ratify the extension to go to March 6, 2018, and then I will have more information for the board in February. Questions?
They're open to working with the Tinley Park engineer?
Yes, absolutely, yes. They spoke with their executive vice president that's in charge of the project. We had a couple of different conversations over the winter break. They are committed to making this work. They want to build a store and be there in Tinley. One of the things they determined through the Army Corps of Engineers and the surveys that were done, they will not be able to have access off of Harlem due to the cost of running a bridge across the floodplain. So they did quite a bit of analysis in terms of, regionally, we're willing to drive a little bit further to get where we want to go. It's just what we do in the Chicago suburbs. They don't see that where they're at in Wisconsin. So they've done studies to indicate that people would be willing to drive across Harlem and take the left in off of 191st, because that's where their entrance and exits will be. They will not have access off of Harlem. So they've put quite a bit of engineering into this project, so they're committed to making this work. They appear to be committed. We hope. So we'll continue to work, and as I said, we'll have a little bit more information in February as we move forward. Obviously, as we've discussed, we would like to close this fiscal year.
Is that a time frame they seem to be comfortable with as well?
Correct, yes. Because the sooner they close, the sooner they can have a shovel in the ground and open. Correct.
How does the Village of Tinley Park feel that's kind of avoiding? Do they feel they're committed?
Yes, they're excited about the project and continue to move forward as well.
How do we come up with March 6th?
March 6th was just moving it out 60 more days. That's essentially what it was. We wanted to keep a window so there's still that movement and encouraging keep that ball moving right now.
Any other questions for Dr. Tingley at this time? If not, entertain a motion to ratify the Third Amendment to the land sale agreement.
So moved.
There's a motion, is there a second? Second. Motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote, please.
The vote is open. Vote is unanimous, the motion passes.
Thank you. Next action item is property insurance renewal.
Mr. Kaufman.
Yes, so we went out to bid again for our insurance renewal. This is for property casualty liability insurance. As you see in your report, 2 years ago, the district switched brokers, went with Alliant Mesro Insurance Services, and at that point saved about over $235,000 in our insurance. Now, coming off of that, we've negotiated hard with the carriers, even having a large claim this last year from our boiler. We actually came back with some increases in coverage and have a modest increase of $11,394 in our premium, or 2.6%. We would recommend go ahead and move forward in buying this coverage.
Entertain a motion to approve the property insurance renewal as presented.
So moved.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion?
Just in determining the increases in coverage, I mean, what brought those about? Was it just that's something they were offering, or is that something we were looking for?
No, it's something we're looking for. So one of the things that, Alliant/Mesro does for us is an evaluation of our packages and that. And so this last year, they really were focused on trying to get the best package with the best price. Obviously $230,000 decrease. Now what we were looking at was trying to just tweak some of those areas. For like example, non-monetary defense. So that'd be a case where we were in a lawsuit. They weren't really seeking damages in dollars, but seeking us to change something in program or whatever. Well, that would cover attorney fees. Well, we had only $100,000. We're able to move that up. Attorney fees are expensive. Dishonesty limits. We only had $25,000. We felt like, they recommended that should be up. So these are from recommendations from Mesro on things we should do to increase our coverage to more in line with our operations for our size.
Are these in line with what we had prior to last year? Like if you went back 2 years, I know you weren't here.
I don't know that. I haven't gone back and looked. I don't know if there was any major changes. It was my understanding that the difference was just the hard shopping in the market is what really got us the substantial discount. And now with stable premiums, we're looking to actually bring our coverage up. So that's my understanding.
This 2.6% increase is factored into our budget when we were planning earlier this year.
Right. We planned, for an increase. So this is within our budget.
Good question.
We've had good experience with them.
Yes, we've had very good experience following up on claims and that kind of stuff with them. They're very responsive. We worked with them on a number of things. I think Rich would say the same, working through the boiler. I mean, that was a big claim. And, we received our funding and everything worked out. So.
Motion and a second. If there's no additional discussion, call for a vote.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. Final action item tonight is the Lincoln Way East roof replacement bid. I would entertain a motion to accept the DLA recommendation as it was presented in your board packet.
So moved.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
All right, open for discussion. Scott, please.
Rich, who's going to leave off? I want to.
We'll have Rich, he's the expert here.
Basically, what we have is, we'd like you to approve the bid for roof restoration at Lincoln Way East on several roofs. The original plan and the original budget was for a retrofit, which means we would put a roof on top of the existing. Through some core samples and infrared imaging, we have determined with the manufacturer that the roofs were great candidates for a restoration, which would give us 15 years or more on our existing roofs before we overlay them. And it's the cheapest option at this time, freeing up some funds for us to complete some of the other projects in our capital improvement fund.
How, I know it's a 15-year warranty. How long do we anticipate this actually lasting? I guess, as I read through this, I thought maybe it was worth having a discussion. Is it worth spending the extra $150,000 now?
That's a great question, and I anticipated that question. The way we're looking at this is, once you retrofit or put another roof on top of the existing roof, your next step is a complete tear-off. To do a complete tear-off on the roofs at these school buildings means upgrading insulation to the new energy code. In order to do that, in some cases, you have to rebuild parapet walls, move mechanical equipment. It becomes very, very, very expensive very quickly. The longer we can keep our existing roofs intact, the better for the district in the long term, as far as dollars are concerned.
So that extra $150,000 could escalate well beyond that quickly when you started to tear things off, if you wanted to go with that alternate number one?
If you went with the alternate and you recovered the roof, if you retrofitted the roof now, the next time you visit that roof, it's a complete tear-off.
Gosh.
So this is buying one more
This is
time.
buying 15 to 20 years, and then a retrofit, which gets you 30 years. So that gets us way out there with our existing roof, keeps our roof out of the landfill, and saves quite a bit of money over the term, in my opinion.
What was this in our roofing survey that was done? Where did this fall in that survey at this time? Was this what was recommended at that time, or was this?
Architects recommended a retrofit on all roofs that did not have to be torn off. Like I said, working with the manufacturer of the roof, we did some core samples in infrared imaging, like we discussed when we did the survey, and they recommended that the roofs were great candidates for a restoration to extend the life.
Just a quick, who was the they? Who was the second they? Who recommended the restoration? The architect?
The roofing manufacturer?
The manufacturer. Okay, thank you.
Now, we don't have a capital projects plan in here, but was this there was more roof work to be done this summer, correct? Or was this the only roof work?
This is all the roof work to be done summer of 2018.
Okay.
Have we worked with this company before?
I have not worked with this roofing company. Our architects have, and they recommend that to accept it.
Have we done any of our own due diligence on this company? Financial, reputational, anything? Or just working off the DLA's?
Working off DLA's
I
recommendation.
looked them up. They were at an 8+ rating on the Better Business Job.
Thank you.
I mean, this goes to why are we bringing, like we were talking about having bids and going out in February, coming back and approving in March. How is this one moving forward off of that schedule?
I can answer that. I mean, I know that's our general schedule, but, you know, the sooner we can be in the market, the better the price. For example, I believe it's 11 bidders on this roof thing. That's outstanding, you know. If we were doing this in May, even April, we wouldn't have 11 bidders. Competition is very peaked right now. So with this kind of dollars, we pushed ahead and got out in the market quick, and I think the price reflects it. So we will continue to do that. You know, I mean, January, February, that's our target, but if we can get out a little quicker, we will, because I just experienced over years, it's just that much better to be on the street first than last.
Yeah, I mean, as we start to get to the summer months, you're going to have companies that just won't even participate in the bid process because they have too much work, or they'll bid higher knowing that they can't take it. At least that's been my experience in the industry.
No, I think that's a good reason to do that. I think from an overall aspect, when we were talking in October, when the 5-year capital or the capital projects were brought up, I raised that I thought we were going to be spending all of the money that's in that capital projects plan, or that's what it looked like, and we had a discussion that we would kind of bring this back and kind of, at least from the administration, give the board kind of the priorities. I think roofing obviously is a priority, so I don't see any problem with this one moving forward, but I think for anything else, I think we should be having a discussion on kind of the appropriate, level of capital projects to do. I agree, longer term, you have to, I've talked about, I call it a sustainable budget. I think you have to get up to that 3 million, 3% range, but I just, with all the unknowns and where we are with our financials, we had, and when we were talking about this prior, maybe some of these board members weren't here, the time might escape me, but we were talking about a little bit slower ramp up, and I think we should at least have that discussion before we go through and approve all these projects. This one, again, I think the roofs and the parking lots, which we've done the studies on everything, I think those are the priorities, so I'm fine. This obviously is personally fine, but I think we have to have that discussion.
That makes sense.
Okay, so for the next meeting, we can bring an update to the capital improvement plan. Just know that, we are working every day on this. Every day we're getting something else lined up. So we'll bring an update for the next meeting, but the cogs are rolling. This is the busiest bidding time right now for us, and so we're moving quickly.
I'm not trying to get in the way, but when I brought this up in October, it was said that we would, because I watched it again, and we said we would bring this up before we talked about all these, and when we're bidding in February and March. So I think we owe it to have that conversation.
We want to be careful we don't kick our coverage, or, to Chris's point, it ramps up pretty fast. Now, this was a great, because this adds to it, because you're doing a restoration versus retrofit, saving hundreds, thousands of dollars over, and getting a 15-year extension. But I think it's prudent to revisit that, because I'm sure next month you're going to come in with a series of other bids. That again, I just want to make sure we're not writing checks we can't cash.
Right. We'll bring an update for next meeting.
And I'm not trying to get into the picking the projects. I think I'm talking about this from more of a strategic, how much. Yeah, how are we growing those capital projects and getting there? So,
Well thought. Any other questions? If not, we have a motion and a second. Call for a vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. Well done, Rich. Good job. It's good to see you. All right. Now we are on to our informational items. Report of the Lincoln Way Special Education District 843.
Yes, I attended that meeting. We purchased 2 new vans and a bus that was totaled in an accident. Overall, the district is relatively healthy. The next few months, we'll continue to do evaluations of the director and review her contract, which is up this June. So I'll keep you updated as we proceed with that. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Ron. Next item, FOIA requests.
No report.
Thank you. Next, audit finding.
Nothing new to report. As we have done in the past, the summary of the 2017 audit findings are there for your review, and we'll continue to work towards a resolution on those remaining items.
Thank you for putting them in. Next item, proposed budget calendar.
Brad, any changes? Go ahead.
Yes, we added that requested date, May 17th, 2018, for Board of Education to receive budget update and provide feedback. So we've inputted that, but that would be the calendar we'd recommend following. As you can see, it's time to get moving on this. So,
any other input on the budget calendar? It's good. Thank you, Brad, for making those updates. Next, enrollment report.
Brad, go ahead and give an overview of that, please.
Yes, I'd like to thank Steve Wallert for helping. Basically, he collected all the data, built a spreadsheet to put together a grade progression analysis, or what we call cohort survival method. It's working on a 3-year rolling average, where we take our known elementary feeder districts, and then we roll those up by calculating out that grade progression ratio and coming up with that, and then applying that to project out future high school enrollments. Basically, in summary, we think over the next 5 years the district could expect our enrollment to drop by approximately 340 students, bringing our total enrollment to approximately 6,600 students by the fall of 2022. Assuming there's no major change in housing or anything like that. The cohort survival method, it's important that we update it, analyze it, and continue to look at it periodically, especially every fall after we get our latest enrollment updates, and we will continue to do that. But it's historically, the cohort survival method is a pretty decent method in projecting enrollments. So with that, we'll answer questions. And Steve's here in the audience. If he has any questions, he could answer to.
Have we updated the 5CAS using these numbers?
With the new evidence-based funding model, the revenue side is neutral to enrollment. So it really just be any class size sectioning. And so that process is really just getting rolling. Once we figure out all of our sectioning, that will be part of the update that will roll together into the 5CAS for, I believe it's the March 1st meeting. So
I think this is good. I think looking at some other districts use this method, so it's probably kind of moving towards best practices. Are there? It doesn't really have a comparison of what we were looking at. I mean, is there any significant differences between what we were kind of putting out there as projections before and this?
Nothing significant, Chris. Same trends.
I mean, this trend, obviously down. I think the other thing you have to kind of look at, and I mentioned this, is when you look at just the birth rate in Illinois, and it's down. It looks the chart, if you go onto the Illinois Department of Health or whatever, looks very similar to this, and you look at it, and from 2000 to I think the last year they have is like 2015. It's declined every year, and it's now just starting to tick up. But when you think about that, it started ticking up in 2013-14. When you add 14 years when they'll be in high school, it's off of this chart when you kind of have that. So that's not to say specifically that's what's going to happen in this district, but that's kind of one of the headwinds that you're facing is just the population decline. And Will County had the same thing. Will County had some big growth going into 2000, and it started falling off by it was almost 10,000 births, and then it went down 600, and it's so that headwind. You can have more building permits, but those things take a long time to kind of ramp up.
That coupled with just the adult
out-migration,
of the state, especially with these border counties. I mean, you can get to Indiana pretty quick.
Oh, Amazon and Apple come to save the day.
Might as well grab Google while you're at it.
Yeah, right. I have just a quick question. What is the current, we're operating 3 buildings now.
Yes.
What's the current capacity of those 3 buildings?
Well, we've used 2 different numbers in the past. We've talked about, we have the architect's capacity, which is 2,500 at West, and then we're at 3,750 at both East and Central. The architect's number, that's the assumption of basically each classroom being utilized with 28 to 30 students. We know that's not necessarily the case. So a comfortable number, a functional capacity would be somewhere around 2,300 at West, and 3,370 at East, and 3,150 at Central, give or take 50 students. And that's us going through and saying, okay, these are our special ed classrooms, we accounted for 14 to 16 students. Some of our larger areas, band, choir rooms, 35 to 40 students. And so going through and counting those numbers, so that would be all told district-wide, somewhere around 8,700, 8,700 to 9,000 would be still a comfortable number for 3 schools.
If this projected out in just a handful of years, we have basic capacity of 9,000 with 6,600 kids. Correct. Interesting long-term planning thought. Kind of being serious.
Sure,
Now's
absolutely.
the time to start to think about what that means.
And as the number for programming, as we've seen, is 2,000. If we're around 2,000 students, that 1,900 to 2,000 students, that gives us enough students to run our AP programs, our honors programs, our music programs. That 2,000 is the number. As you recall, when we were, at 1,800 or less at North, and then at 1,300 to 1,400 at West, we were traveling students all day. And we now don't have to do that. In fact, our traveling now is pretty much limited to ROTC between West and Central. And so that 2,000 number, as long as we can maintain that 2,000 in our buildings, that's what's best for our academic program. If we start to drop below that, then yes, then we're looking at traveling again.
I'm sure this is something we can vet out later. We're not going to know the answer, but I mean, we've got 5, 6 feeder districts, how many feeder districts? 5 feeder districts. Okay.
5, 6 junior highs.
Okay, so where is there any pattern, like at certain districts that are declining versus growing, or I mean, because my point would be here that if you got the largest building at 3,400, let's just say on average, this whole, and you're at 2,200 per building, I mean, you've got a third of the building that wouldn't be utilized. So I'm just planting that seed.
Sure. Sure.
I mean, this kind of throws an interesting twist into it, because I would assume that, just, and again, not knowing what's going to happen with North Point or whatever down in the Manhattan area, but that's the one district that seems to be accretive.
Yes, they're seeing some moderate growth. In fact, the superintendents, feeder superintendents, and I have discussed this fall in terms of enrollments. In fact, I believe we put those in a previous meeting this fall, but we can bring those back. We know that Summit Hill is going to see a slight decline. We know that Mokina has kind of leveled off and is seeing a little bit of a decline. Your new Lennox grade schools, Martino there for a while was seeing a little bit of a decline, or Liberty was seeing some growth. And at this time, Manhattan is seeing some growth. But those are numbers we'll continue to monitor. I have not discussed move-ins with the superintendents to see what happened over the holiday break, because typically you will see some students move during the winter break. But the next sound number will be next October, and we'll get another look.
North Point though is commercial, not residential.
No, but it may impact
people
moving to Manhattan.
Okay.
Even this morning, there were people in Elwood were putting their homes up for sale. Okay, so what does that do to the dynamics of the Manhattan structure? I don't know, but because this becomes a very sensitive issue.
Yes.
People are going to make real estate decisions and other decisions based on where that educational process may be. So if we start to see it tilt in one way or the other, I think the more we can share that message, the earlier we can share that message, I think the better off everybody will be. But we're way out on the curve there. But
sure.
Just want to start to dig into the data.
Something to keep looking at.
Yep. How accurate have we been, 1 to 2 years out? I mean, we know what the feeder districts have. I mean, these 1 to 2 year numbers for sure are, usually play out pretty accurately.
Those are going to be pretty accurate, yeah. We may see a swing 1 year with maybe 30 additional kids going to a private school, and then the next year we may see 15 or 20 coming back this way. We've seen some students here at semester break We've seen some movement of students. Athletically, students can leave a private and come to a public and participate right away. So that's always a factor. If a student is a freshman chooses the private setting, they get one free transfer, as it were, to come back and become immediately eligible. So we do from time to time see that occur. The numbers 1 and 2 years out are accurate.
Do we have any idea on the number of building permits, or when we can get some numbers on those? Some of those.
The historical trends.
Some of the historical trends in there.
But for 18, like when will those numbers start coming out, you know?
Couple of days.
Yeah, we'll start.
Majority are going to be full.
I'll have them in a couple of days. The 2017 permits.
Yeah.
Couple of days.
Couple of days.
Couple days we'll have to.
So I'm sure most of them are going to be in the first half of the year for 18.
Actually, I mean, it's, you know, we're at double the peak, or not to say double the low point. In 2008 was 221 building permits. We're up to, you know, 2016 was 450. It's
Okay.
interesting, yeah. But it's obviously not back up to where it was in 2007.
The other component that is difficult to calculate is existing home sales.
Right.
People are buying working family who ran K through 12 and still are sitting in the domicile with nobody in it, waiting for a new family with 5 to move in.
More importantly, my parents, who
Yeah,
are
same thing.
they've been sitting there for 20 years plus.
It's an interesting topic. Interesting question. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Steve.
Steve.
Thank you.
Good work. Our next informational item, building and grounds report.
Buildings and grounds report is included in your backup materials. If you have any questions, I'm sure Rich can answer them. Does anybody have any discussion or questions for Rich?
It looked like we were running pretty, anything jumping out at you, it looked like we were pretty much in line with the prior year and with budget, so.
It looks like we're right on with the prior year when I subtract the pavement maintenance and the
Right.
pre-purchase of natural gas.
This is another good report. Very detailed. Right. Next, community relations.
Once again, community relations report in your backup materials. Taryn has provided a pride sheet with a number of happenings at Lincoln Way for your review.
Next, asset of the month.
Asset of the month for February, hard to believe already, is cultural competence. Young person knowledge and comfort of people of different cultural, racial, ethnic backgrounds. At home, teach your children about their heritage, encourage them to feel proud of their cultural, ethnic, and racial identity without feeling superior. At school, model acceptance and appreciation of differences. Make these stated values in your school and district. Don't tolerate racism, bias, or prejudice. In the community, include the images and voices of a variety of people in community publications, advertisements, posters, and promotional materials.
Legislative report.
I included in the backup material an article from, let's see, I believe this is the Tribune, but regarding Rauner's veto creates uncertainty for Will County schools. Governor Rauner vetoed the school funding bill, which he's been taking credit for over the last several months. We don't yet know the true impact of that bill. It's something Brad has been working with. So that'll become a little bit more clear here over the next couple of days. It deals with, excuse me, the scholarship, some of the scholarships to private schools that Rauner wanted to be part of the bill. And evidently he didn't catch that the first time through, and so now he's come back and he's vetoed. So we'll have to wait and see the uncertainty created by that veto. As you can see here, Jennifer Bertino-Tarrant is not happy, and I know the sponsor of the bill, helping out Brad, the sponsor of the bill is from down by Decatur. Andy Manar is not pleased as well. So we're going back to work on that. Brad, anything to add at this point, or we're just going to have to wait out and see what it means for us?
No, we just have to wait and see. It's my understanding that the core funding bill, which was 1940 whatever, Senate bill or whatever, that passed. And this is the additional $350 million that was to provide additional funding to the evidence-based funding model. And that's why he vetoed it, because it did include some of the scholarship stuff. So, you know, it's my understanding that the core or the hold harmless, that is the funding needed, but it was that additional amount that ISBE was in the process of determining based on where people were on their adequacy. That's the money he vetoed out. So no new money until they can get that veto solved, but as far as the minimum, that should still be flowing because it was part of that original base bill, if you will.
So we'll have more information in February as this unfolds.
Ask we keep a real keen ear to this, because the longer it sits out there, something else might get appended to it, and all of a sudden takes it a little bit off the path. And that's kind of what I'm afraid.
Jennifer is an education background. What is she?
Correct. She was the regional superintendent for Will County.
All right, next, superintendent's report.
I have a couple items for you this evening. The first I put, we sent out a survey, just a very simple survey to the staff who is using Aunt Nancy's, just kind of as a feedback as we are 6 months into the new year. So basically just the question, how many children do you currently have? How many will you use next year? Rate the quality of experience, and then provide some responses if you have any concerns, or there were also some positives. But as you can see, came back positive, 67% very good, 16 good, 13 average, and then 6% rated as poor. So we received some feedback. I will share that with Aunt Nancy's, but also just wanted to share it with the board. Continue to monitor the contract as we move through this fiscal year. This is the first of a 3-year agreement. The next.
So those are, number 3 is percentages?
It should be percentages. Does it not add up to 100, Chris? Percentage number?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been interesting, like, there were 77 responses, we didn't get copied on that.
I can get those to you. Some of them I'm going to have to white out due to sensitivity.
Okay.
But let me get to work on that. That's why I didn't have that at this point. Okay. The second item is, as I've shared with the board, we did have some trespassing and break-ins at Lincoln Way North over the past couple of weeks. We continue to work with Will County on that investigation. We'll be moving forward to gain restitution to those. It's an unfortunate isolated incident. Students will be held accountable both at school and then also through the justice system. We are waiting and working with Will County as the criminal side unfolds. Then, as that follows the process, then we will begin the process of restitution and becoming whole for the damage that's been done. No question, well, does this happen? We have had issues time to time in all of our buildings. Large high schools, large buildings, it happens from time to time. There was one year somebody took the big penny off the front of Lincoln Way Central, and it was missing for a couple of weeks until a mom called us and said she might get after us. No, probably shouldn't. So, it's unfortunate, and it's something we'll continue to work through. Rich and his staff, we've made some adjustments. Part of the not having a cleaning crew there from 4 o'clock until 10, 10:30, 11, 12, as we do in our other buildings. So we're working on our coverage so that nothing like this happens again. But as I said, unfortunately, it does happen from time to time in all of our buildings. There are buildings, we have to just continue to remain diligent and monitor our buildings. Any questions or concerns that I would be able to answer at this time?
For the rest of the board, I was there with Dr. Tingley and with Rich It was not pretty initially, but it's amazing what Rich's staff, the contractors, it's pristine, it's fine, it's good, so our asset is secure.
I was able to walk Mr. Lulo through some of the other building, through some of the other classrooms. We have desks tilted down so the dust doesn't collect. During the institute, or not the institute, parent-teacher conferences, we had our cleaning crews go to the building, clean, sweep, cobwebs, dust, what have you. We've been doing that every 3 to 6 months to maintain the cleanliness of the building, and that's something we'll continue to do. Last item I have. When we closed Lincoln Way North, a number of board members have requested, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We have to do something with that building. And at the time, I made the request that the board be patient as we get settled in and stabilize operation in 3 of our buildings. We now have a 1.5 years under our belt. Our operations are stable. Rich and his people have done a good job. Our teachers are settled. We're in a good place. With that being said, now we need to determine, okay, are there any potential uses? What are the uses? What do we do moving forward? Brad has taken some time to determine the estimated cost to cover the price of the outstanding bonds that would be attributed to Lincoln Way North. So we have a dollar figure. That dollar figure is in excess of $100 million. If we were to do something, we would have to work closely with bond counsel and financial advisor to determine what structures, what options there would be. But we know that cost is going to be in the $100 million ballpark. We know the cost of that building as it sits in terms of O&M. We had anticipated it would cost about $600,000 to sit. Last year, we spent about $300,000. We know that O&M associated with operating that building would be anywhere from $1.5 to $2.3 million, a couple million. Not utilized as a school. If we were going to utilize that as a Lincoln Way High School, we know it's going to be an additional $6, maybe $7 million. But for it to operate, for us to turn on the air, the heat, the water, to clean, it would be a couple $1 million. We have not yet had any organization or group that has been willing to cover at least that cost for me to even come back to the board and say, okay, somebody's willing to at least cover the cost now. What will we determine a cost for depreciation and use in addition? We're not to that point. So what I would like to do at this point, we begin to develop an RFQ for an appraisal of the property. So what we would do is send an RFQ out to a number of commercial appraisal companies, receive their RFQ, what they would be willing to charge us to get an appraisal. See if that appraisal matches what we owe. And then at that point, we would bring the RFQ back to the board for discussion, direction, and potential exploration of options. So I guess all I'm asking for at this point is if you're comfortable with us moving forward with an RFQ to even bring that back to the board for discussion as we move forward. Any thoughts?
You had a lot of moving parts.
Yes.
Make sure I understand.
Okay.
So your initial request is to go out for an RFQ to get the building appraised.
Correct.
Okay.
No, request for qualifications of companies that can do the appraisal.
Correct. And a price, what they would charge.
With the fee.
We have no idea what it may cost to appraise something like a building that size.
Right, that's the first step.
So we wouldn't move forward until we brought this back and we bring it back and say, okay, we received these 3 different sets of qualifications at these 3 different price points. Give us some direction. But at this point, before even any discussion or debate or anything, I think that would be a prudent step. And that's going off of conversations that occurred, immediately when the building was closed, and I asked for some time and patience as we worked through. We're to a point now where we can, we know if we were to lease it, what would cover our costs. At the time, we weren't sure, and now we know that. And then also, I guess it's up for discussion and options.
So you're trying to just determine what the building is basically worth sitting there as is right now?
Well, and also they would do a best and highest use.
Okay, so you would do an as-is.
Best and highest use.
So that would be part of the RFQ.
Correct.
And the bond number that Brad worked on to get, that's just kind of out there as a number for what purpose?
Number of what purpose? It would be our understanding that any potential sale, we would have to cover the portion of the bonds that were still attached to North. So we would have to, if the board gave us direction that, hey, that's the direction we want to go, we've already gone through and determined the cost associated with the North High School. We would just get a little bit more micro, I guess, would be the term.
You did an attribution of what was called down from the bonds that went towards the building north versus the updates.
Renovations
to
at East and Central, and yes, correct.
Was that reviewed by PMA?
Right. So I gathered all the data, put it together, sent it up to PMA, had them run through it and, tweak it and clarify.
So they kind of acknowledge that that's a good number for this purpose.
Reasonable number.
Right, okay.
I mean, that number would obviously be verified again down the road.
Absolutely.
We're not
I mean,
saying
if there were,
it's 100 right now, that's the
yes,
number.
yes.
Is that the right direction?
I think we have to determine
At
what.
some point, we gotta know.
Yeah. Thank you for sitting there looking at it.
Also, can you, maybe by next meeting, I mean, we looked at tonight functional capacity, and looking at Steve's report, and you're talking around 9,000. When we closed North in 15, we looked at maybe we need 800 students to reopen it. In addition to this going down and functional capacity being at 9,000, how many more students do we need that we would entertain the 9,000 functional and then be enough to even consider looking at North, where what the feasibility is if you could put something
We can do that.
like that together?
Yep.
I guess it's 6 times a day.
Good point. So you're going to go ahead and put that RFQ, and that'll be in February.
I don't know, Brad, will we have the responses yet, you think?
Yeah, well,
Be close.
we'll be close. I'll push to, I'll have it ready, so I'll get it out next week. We should be able to have it back.
Hopefully for February.
Right. I'd like to have it back, like to keep this moving.
Okay.
I mean, do we know if anybody is even capable of appraising a?
We do.
Public school.
We've talked to our architects, and they've provided us references,
Okay.
not references, but names of other companies that would be willing to do this. So we at least have 4 or 5 who will be able to send it out to.
Thank you for the update.
That completes my report.
Other district business, any members have anything to share with this time?
Here comes off tomorrow.
Thanks, Appreciate it. That'll be the headline.
Yep.
All right. I'd entertain a motion to go into closed session, to discuss collective negotiating and student discipline cases. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second.
All in favor?
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So we now close session.